everybody. Welcome in this live session for the launch of the book QGIS for Hydrological Applications, second edition. And I'm very happy that we're all here who have contributed to the book or are benefiting from the QGISHydro Book Fund. But we also have a host in this live session, and that's Amy Burness. Maybe you know her from the QGIS Open days. So
hi everyone, good to see you.
I'll give the floor to Amy to guide us through the session.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks so much, Hans. I'm so excited to be here. I've had a sneak preview of the QGIS for Hydrological Applications, second edition. It's a fantastic book. I love these kind of books that are recipes, tutorial style, easy to follow for anybody. So I'm so excited to be here and to talk to everybody who was instrumental in bringing out the second edition of the book. So the first thing I wanted to do was just go around the room in order of, how the book came out, etc., and just have everybody introduce themselves, how they were instrumental in the publication / creation of the book, even if they were just a user or learned from this. And then please, can you tell me where you currently are in the world? I think it's important to understand that. So I will go first and then I'll hand over to Hans. So I'm Amy Burness. You probably know me from the QGIS Open Day. I am just honestly a fan of open source software, using QGIS and getting involved with the community. And I come from Johannesburg, South Africa. So I'm going to hand over to Hans for his introduction. Over to you.
Thanks, Amy. So I'm Hans van der Kwast, and you're watching this video through my channel. And I'm tuning in here from Rotterdam in the Netherlands. This is my home office with some nice maps made with QGIS, of course, and open data. And my contributions, of course, being co-author of the book QGIS for Hydrological Applications, and great teamwork with Kurt about that, and focusing mostly on the analytical parts in the book.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks so much, Hans. I think that's a great segue to hop over to Kurt, who is also a co-author of the book. Over to you, Kurt.
Hi, I'm also in my home office tonight in Helsinki, Denmark. I work for Septima, it's based in Copenhagen. And I focus on a lot of data visualizations. So I focused on that part of the book, doing print layouts. And I'm really excited that we have the second edition because there's a lot of important updates in it.
Fantastic. Then I'd like to go over to our publishers, etc., people who are involved in Locate Press. So let's start with Tyler.
Yeah, hi. I'm a founder of Locate Press. We started that 10 years ago. Also helped us co-found OSGeo. So I've been doing a lot of promo and open source geo stuff for a long time now. And we started the company, launched Gary Sherman's relaunch of his desktop GIS book way back when. And then he took care of the company for a long time and is now still editing and helping me, but I'm working more on Locate Press these days.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And then over to you, Gary. Just give us an introduction and where you're from.
There's a lot of echo, Gary. I think, let's see if you can improve it from your side. And move on, I cannot hear you.
For now, let's hop over to then Natalia while Gary sorts the secondary mic out. Natalia, just introduce yourself and tell us where you're from.
I'm Natalia, I'm from Colombia, but now today I'm in Delft, the Netherlands. So I'm an award engineer, and I've been just in this open source world with a project that I had that it came from the WAPR hackathon that is called the WAPlugin. So I've been just introduced to the open sourcing world with this project, and also with the help and support of the QGIS Book Fund.
Fantastic, fantastic. And then over to you, Celine.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Oh, Celine popped off. Let's hop on back to Gary and see if he's back with us.
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Am I intelligible?
Yes, no more aliens.
Not intelligent, just intelligible. I'm Gary Sherman. I founded QGIS some 20 years ago. Been a little bit of everything in my career, from a geologist to a mining engineer to a software developer to an author to cleaning up Tyler's messes and making bigger problems for him. I'm not officially associated with Locate Press anymore. I ran the company for about 8-10 years, but now I'm a freelance consultant for Locate Press, and I did a bit of editing on the hydrological book, as well as fixing up some of the other issues with it. And I am in the, at the moment, sunny state of Alaska, USA, where it may reach 70 degrees Fahrenheit for the first time today.
I can't believe you have a t-shirt on. I am in Africa where it's boiling and you can see my beautiful jacket. No, we're going into winter now. Alrighty, over to you, Celine. I hear congratulations are in order.
Hi.
You've just graduated, so congratulations. Please introduce yourself and let us know where you're coming from. You're welcome.
Yes, I am Celine Safi from Lebanon. Sorry for the bad connection. This is a proof that I am in Lebanon. And I have just graduated from IHE, and I have used QGIS in my thesis to show how the spatial and temporal variability can be used and how data can be used. And of course, I used all the seminar and tutorial from Professor Hans into my thesis, because it was very useful, because also when you have big data, it's very useful to transform it into information for decision making. And also it is interesting because in Lebanon, we have an open map community, and it's very interesting. It is founded by 3 women and 2 men. So it's interesting to empower also women in this sector.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Celine. All right. I'd like to now continue into some questions about why we hear the book. So let's start off, both Kurt and Hans, I think. Let's start off with Hans. I'd like to talk, talking about basically hydrological applications and using open source software. So let me know what's new in the 2nd edition.
There's a lot of things new in the 2nd edition. One chapter has been completely revised. That is the chapter about stream and catchment delineation. And people who have the 1st edition, don't throw it away immediately. It's just an alternative way of doing the same, using a different set of tools. So the workflow is still the same. It's a generic workflow that we use in GIS and hydrology to delineate streams and catchments. And you can apply this with all kinds of software. And in QGIS, we have access to different plugins and from different providers. So in the 1st edition, we've used a workflow with Saga, with the tools from the processing toolbox. And we've replaced that in chapter 4 with the tools from the PC Raster Tools plugin, which is a plugin that I've been prototyping for a while and could finally have it released together with Niall Dawson from North Road from Australia as an official QGIS plugin, which has been downloaded already more than 6,000 times. So I'd really like to see how people are going to use that. And therefore, it's also nice that in the book we have a whole chapter about using these tools for stream and catchment delineation. Another change is that we've introduced the raster attribute tables, also quite a new feature in QGIS, which opens up a whole set of use cases. You can link the layer styling panel styles to an attribute table where you can add extra attributes, control the colors, and lots of nice things. And we have changed a few of the data sets that were used. So in the 1st edition, we've used a land use map from Corrine for chapter 5 on open data in the WMS service, the web service. And I thought it would be more interesting with our global audience to use something that's available everywhere. So in chapter 5, we're now using the ESA world cover data set, 10-meter resolution of land use land cover as a WMTS layer in QGIS. And of course, all kinds of smaller changes on functionality, on tools in QGIS, and things that improve the workflow and the experience of the user.
Oh, that sounds absolutely amazing. For the viewers, I do apologize for my persistent cough. I've picked something up on some recent travels, so I do apologize for that. I will mute myself as far as possible. I'd like to hop over to Kurt for now, because I know that you worked on a lot of the styling features and the new things for the print layout in QGIS with the hydrological applications. So can you tell us in the book what's new for both styling and the print layout?
Yeah, absolutely. So in general, one of the nice things about the book is not only is it a beautiful domain-specific book, but there's a lot of tools in there that have broad application to any field that you're working in with QGIS. So there's a lot of symbology options. After every set of analysis steps, we show you how to style that kind of data beautifully on the map. And so with that, we're using all the latest renderers, for example, to beautifully render Strahler order streams and taper them from the thickest stream down through the tributaries. For the print layout, we've incorporated legend patch shapes into the legend, so that it's a beautiful new feature in QGIS where you can not only download and use legend patch shapes provided by the QGIS community, but you can also base a legend patch shape on one of the features of your data. And it just makes the resulting map much more intuitive to the map reader. And part of that improvement too is there's a new gradient legend option for rasters in a print layout. And so we also incorporate that change. So when you're done with all the analysis, you produce this really nice map at the end that shows you how to do things with map themes and use locator maps and lots of nice labeling tricks as well. So you really get a well-rounded education as you go through the book.
Oh, that sounds absolutely fantastic. I like the idea of going to play with the different patches. It's functionality that I've actually, longed for in a map as a cartographer. So I'm keen to go and play around with that and see how the book takes us through doing that. Hans, I wanted to ask you, how do you experience, is this book a good experience for someone who is not a hydrogeologist, someone who doesn't have that background? Will they also be able to do the recipes and follow along?
I think so. I think this way of teaching, we call that problem-based learning. So everything is set around a theme, and you will learn the functionality of QGIS along with workflows for the theme. And that's a great way to learn functionality. I've seen courses where they introduce button for button, and that's a completely different way of learning software. So I think the experience with a more problem-based book is also an interesting one for many users. And so don't be intimidated by the word hydrological applications. It's just one of the many, many applications that you can imagine to use GIS for. And this is just a great way to learn all this new functionality.
Oh, fantastic. And segueing from that, what have you been using this book in class, and what is your experience? I know as a teacher and lecturer, you must use this. So what is your experience of using this in the classroom?
Yes, I think a hard copy book is very useful if you do teaching in class, because people need to have the software on their screens. And unfortunately, these days, computer rooms are not like in the past at universities. We now have more the system of bring your own laptop, and they have all these small screens. And I even have to tell them to use a mouse. I think the students who are watching now recognize that. I always tell them it's for me, because me as a non-millennial, I'm not used to use that strange pad in front of them. So there are a lot of things that make our work difficult as GIS specialists. In this home office, I have two big screens, I have a mouse, everything's well equipped. But in the classroom, unfortunately, these days, that's not the case. In my time, we had, of course, all two screens and well-equipped rooms. It also means that you have quite a high variability of installations and setups in your classroom. So I think a printed book in front of you where people really well read the steps is helped by that. If they have to read it on screen on a PDF and swap between QGIS and the PDF, we see that students make a lot of reading mistakes or lose a bit the orientation in the materials. But I also see the value of having it as an additional to an e-learning environment where you also have the steps, including all the multimedia that we can present.
Fantastic. I think then I'll hop over to Celine, because you, of course, have experienced online GIS teaching, especially for open source software. So I wanted to ask you, what's your experience of online teaching? I suppose specifically from Hans, let's do a teacher review. But no, tell me about your experience.
Yes, actually, I was learning online the first 5 months, but honestly, the tutorial we had, of course, made by Dr. Hans, they were very detailed. So you didn't have to, like, you could self-learn it on your own and self-paced, which helps a lot because you could do the assignments on your own, on your own pace. And it was very detailed. Like I still go back to these tutorials until now. I still have it, and I still go back every time I want to make a map or use GIS, specifically when I was doing my thesis in the last month.
Oh, fantastic. What was your thesis on? Just let us know, give us a bit of background.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. My thesis was about using remote sensing to report SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And although I downloaded spatial maps from WAPOR, but I could only use QGIS to show the information, because data on its own, even if it's available and accessible, you cannot do anything with it. You have to transform it. And because of
there's the issue with our internet connection for now. So while we wait for Celine to come back, I'd like to actually ask a little bit about the publishing of the second edition of this book. So I think I'll hop over to Tyler. Tyler.
Sure.
And Gary, I think it's for both of you. How did Locate Press come about? I see it's very much for open source geospatial books. And I want to know how it came about, how it all started.
Yeah, really, I think I started just a little bit before we launched. Gary's book was our first book that we launched there, the Geospatial Desktop. Both him and I had published books as authors before. I published through O'Reilly and he published through Pragmatic Press. And both of our books actually went out of print and we couldn't get our copyright back, and that felt really bad. And so we decided to start a company that brought the open source geospatial market into being for books. There was a couple publishers that had little books here and there, but we really wanted to focus on it. I knew through my work with OSGeo and just my professional GIS career that not a lot of people knew these tools existed. So QGIS included, but even stuff like PostGIS and others. But so that was the impetus for really investigating the potential in this market as a small business to help bring knowledge kind of to the foreground. So we were able to, Gary could talk more about his book and what we did for it, but that really kicked off and kind of proved the concept that people were interested in learning more and having more knowledge kind of brought to the surface for them through books. And originally we were just focused on print books, did some Kindle a little bit, and now we do primarily digital PDF prints, or PDF ebooks. But yeah, it was really the open source geospatial market's changed a little bit, but there's still not a lot of marketing money behind these open source projects, and so we're doing our part to help kind of raise that awareness.
Fantastic. Perhaps Gary could speak to this, or both of you. I can see you've both published, but I know people watching this are kind of, thinking, well, I have expertise in QGIS or open source software, FOSS4G software. How does publishing with Locate Press work? Is it idea of sort of from an idea to a book? How do we go through that publishing process?
Yeah, sure. We're trying to make the process as simple as possible, because we know that a lot of people who maybe have the knowledge won't see themselves as technical writers. So we're working on a new series of books too that are smaller, so that new writers can get started with writing a couple chapters at a time, and not dedicate all their evenings for the next year and a half to writing content. Been there, done that, by the way. And the other aspect to this too is that we haven't done a lot of domain specific books. We've looked at a lot of technology, and this book that we're talking about today is really the most domain specific kind of level of expertise that, although it's useful for learning QGIS in general, it really is focused on a specific type of user. And we need more of these books. So we actually are, I won't say desperate for content, because we're also bottlenecked by resources, but anyone who has expertise in specific areas, whether it's forestry, mining, planning, urban design, whatever, we will definitely discuss it. We don't have an onerous thing. We jump on a call and chat about it, get an outline, and then go forward from there.
Perhaps in the FOSS4G conference coming up, we can keep an eye out for some, presentations or workshops that would make a decent book.
Exactly.
I think that's great. Yeah, no, absolutely. I then wanted to just ask, what you mentioned that Gary obviously was part of the Locate Press. What are your plans with the publishing platform?
My plans? I'm basically Tyler's henchman. I do what he wants, and so I'm actually have written a series of fiction books. I'm doing that. I have currently one book in maybe revision for Locate Press, but I'm not haven't been pursuing it real vigorously. But
you won't use the word retire in any of this discussion, by the way.
Yeah, I'm retired. So one of the neat things I think I'll just say about Locate Press for anybody who's thinking about writing, hopefully the authors won't shake their head no, but we have a set of tools that allow us to publish both digital and hard copy from one source. And it's not like writing a book in Word. All the indexing and the table of contents and the figure cross references and all that are generated. It takes a little bit of work, but in the long run, it's worth it from the publishing standpoint compared to trying to do it all by hand. So, and we in the past and still provide guidance in that and do a lot of the background work. But so that's if you're writing a book from scratch. But we've also, back when I was officially part of it, done books that have been already completely written in another form, like say a workshop content or another training class, and take that and convert it and publish it. So those are both options for Tyler to get your book out in print and digital.
We should just mention real quick too, one of the other founding principles that we've operated on is much higher royalty rate than other publishers give. So not to make too much of a sales pitch, but come and join us. We're a small publisher. We don't sell tens of thousands of books a year, but we do offer 50% royalties as opposed to the piddly 10% that we've gotten in our books before Locate Press was around, which was really nice to get $1.50 on a $40 book. But so keep that in mind for anybody who's interested. We have a much different model, which I'm happy to dive into in a phone call with somebody.
10%. I got 1.5% with Pact Publishing.
Sorry.
Thank
you
you
for the negotiation.
My goodness.
Yeah. Sorry.
All right.
Geez.
Oh my goodness. Alrighty, I'm going to bring us back. I'm going to bring us to what other books we can publish, etc. But I'm going to bring us back to QGIS for Hydrological Applications, 2nd edition for now. And I just wanted to ask Hans, what is your experience of using the book in class? as teaching material?
Well, we just had that question a bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
But to use it in class, I think it's really for the domain specialists, the hydrologists, it's really useful. And I think for people who study it themselves as a problem-based approach, it works. But I think for other people who teach it in class, Kurt's book might be a lot better. Because that's more generic. So at universities where they teach GIS as a generic topic, not specific for a domain, I think Kurt's book at Locate Press is a much better option.
All right. So then Kurt's book, tell us about that. Tell us about your book that's coming out.
Let's get into the shameless plug territory a little bit. But yeah, so I, in 2019, published this beast, Discover QGIS 3X, which is a 400-page workbook for classroom or independent study, and it's a pretty thorough treatment of all the features in QGIS. And QGIS. In Denmark, they say QGIS, and you know, I moved to Denmark in the middle of the pandemic, and I'm learning Danish, and so I'm learning how to pronounce QGIS in a different way here too. So I go back and forth. But the updated book I've been working on since Hans and I finished the edits to the QGISHydro book. So for the last 3 months on weekends, I've been working on the second edition of Discover QGIS 3X. And it has 5 parts. It starts out with the basics of how to, it even starts kind of about how you're teaching the basics of GIS with data models and file formats and projections and how to add data. And it goes through spatial analysis, data management, cartography, and then into advanced data visualization at the end. And so the new book is going to be a big improvement. It goes through and has 7 new chapters in the new book. It's a major new release. It's going to be updated to just about QGIS 3.2.6, and it's going to include some nice things like field data collection that weren't in the first book, raster data analysis, working with the style manager, working with point clouds. So it has a lot of the latest and greatest features in QGIS, plus updates to all the material that was there before.
Fantastic. So Discover's kind of your more everybody wants to come and have a look book for everyone who's starting to sort of go into open source software and using QGIS, whereas QGIS for hydrological is very much more specialized.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Alrighty. So Hans, I wanted to actually ask you about what the GIS Hydro Book Fund is. Can you explain a bit? Because I've seen a bit about it, but can you give me all the background info on it?
Yeah, sure. Well, I can connect to Tyler's statement that the royalties are quite fair for the authors. So 50% goes to the authors, and we are 2 authors. So my 25% share doesn't go to me, but I have a fund hosted at IHE Delft. So the money is transferred to IHE Delft, and there's a project number that I can manage. And the idea of the fund is to, it's astonishing always when we see who are at Phosphor-G and QGIS events, and they're mostly people from the global north, from Europe and from US and Canada, mostly male, many of my age and a bit older. So we miss a big group of young people from the global south and also mostly female. So I thought, what could I do about that? And of course, I work in a very nice international institute, IHE Institute for Water Education, in Delft, where we have students from all over the world, and especially from the global south, studying everything related to water. And and the fund addresses these students, so they can apply for the fund. So whenever there's an event like Phosphor-G, then I'll ask around if somebody is doing something with QGIS, because that's one condition. You need to come from the global south, you need to preferably be female, and do something nice with QGIS, either for your master thesis or your other type of research. And then you get the full package. So you can join the QGIS contributor meeting related to the FOSS4G. You join the FOSS4G, and if we have the FOSS4G Netherlands, then you can also join that, and we'll cover all the expenses. So that's basically it. And Natalia knows everything about it because she was our first QGISHydro Book Fund alumnus.
I was just about to ask, because I know I, of course, have spoken to Natalia before about her WAPlugin, and I wanted to ask you, what did you do with your Hydro Book Fund for your time?
Okay, so as Hans mentioned, in that time I was an IHE Delft student. So in the same time that the application for the first free Buenos Aires came, I was just finishing my master, and I also just participated in the WAPR hackathon, that we were one of the teams, winner teams. So yeah, Hans just presented me this idea, and it was really cool because it's a really good opportunity to show like the project. And unfortunately, due to COVID, we couldn't go there to Buenos Aires. But still, with the book fund, I could participate online. It was pretty nice. I just show my project and I present. I also attend to several of the presentations and see cool stuff related with the open source GIS world. So it was really nice. And then last year also, on October, if I'm not wrong, was the first free ENL. So I'm living in the Netherlands. So it was also a good opportunity to participate and be more like in touch and interact more, because now it was possible. And it was pretty nice. Like I really meet really nice people. Also introduced me more in the open source GIS world. That is amazing. I saw the presentation also of Kurt, really nice features in QGIS and the next versions and releases. So it was really nice and a good opportunity. As also Hans said, like we don't see many participation of young female women from other countries, and more in the FOSS4 ENL. So it was also a good starting, I think, for the QGIS fund, and I'm pretty grateful and glad to be participating in all these things. So
that's brilliant. For those of us watching who don't know what the WAP or Water Accounting Productivity plugin is, can you explain the plugin to us and how it's going? How's it going? I caught up with you a couple of months ago on it, so please let me know.
And actually, we have like some like new things and that happened like a few months back. So the WAPlugin, as you say, is the Water Accounting and Productivity plugin that we developed after winning the WAPR hackathon that was done like December 2020, if I'm not wrong. And this project wanted just to connect, like for those that don't know about the WAPR platform. It's a platform that is from FAO, and that provides data for WAPR productivity purposes, so different kind of maps, and is mainly for Africa and Middle East. And so what we wanted is to just bring the data from WAPR to QGIS for those users that are also GIS users, and bring it with this plugin that will just reduce the time, like the time that takes to download the data and also process it in an easier way. And plus, it has a feature for calculating Water Accounting and Productivity indicators. So that's the WAPlugin. And 2 months ago, we released the version 2 that has like a lot of updates, and it's easier to use. And yeah, we also had a live with Hans. We were explaining all these new features. So yeah, this is more or less the project.
Oh, that's brilliant. Are there any plans for the future of the project? What are you currently doing? Are you going to do a presentation at FOSS4G?
I was not, we were like not planning much. We went after releasing the version 2 that took a lot of effort. We were like, we stopped for a while, but I think that the plans are keep improving it, and maybe with a subversion or a next version. But yeah, I don't know if we were going to participate, but maybe FOSS4GNL again. Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. Alrighty, Celine, hopefully your connection holds out. I wanted to circle back to you because you were in the middle of your sentence. And we were just talking about having online classes and your experience of using the hydrological book in class.
Yes. And I was saying I was also using it as a tutorial in my thesis as well, because you could always go back to it. On the tutorials, they were very detailed, and you can self-learn it and on your own pace, which is very important. And also thanks to this book fund, I will go to the FOSS4G event in Italy. So I'm so excited about it. Also to meet all the people behind all this work and basically working as volunteers. And I'm also happy because also in Lebanon, we are starting as a small open map community, which is also interesting to use this in Lebanon because we have a big data gap. So if we can also use this, it would be an added value. And because before coming to the Netherlands, I had no idea about all this. So it's a very interesting exposure for me, specifically to go and meet all these people and learn from them, hopefully. And hopefully next year I will be interviewed and I will tell you what I learned during this seminar or conference.
Let's make it a date. I wanted to ask what your presentation for FOSS4G is.
Yes, I will have a small talk for 5 minutes about my research and how I used QGIS to actually monitor one of the sustainable development goals, because I used raster maps and I used also QGIS with grass. I used all the zonal statistics, R report, R series in order to show the spatial variability and temporal variability of water use efficiency in Lebanon. But also the tool I used can be expanded into other countries. You can use the same workflow I used. I will create a Python Jupyter notebook using Python, so anyone can use it in any other country. And hopefully I will do that by the end of August. I will be done with this, so I will present it in the conference.
Fantastic. And as someone relatively new on the scene of using these software, what is your main motivation for using open source software? Why was it attractive to you for your project?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Sorry, I wanted to ask what your motivation for using open source software was for your project. No, lost. Alrighty. So then I'm going to move over to then Hans. And I wanted to ask you, you have your own company. I wanted to ask why you're still with IHE Delft. What's your motivation for still being involved?
Well, IHE Delft is my main job. So I still keep doing the same stuff that I was doing, the 40 hours per week that I spend at IHE Delft, and teach to students, do projects, capacity development, things that we stand for to solve water problems in the world. But I felt that I needed a bit my own space to go a bit beyond what we do with IHE Delft. So I often get questions through my YouTube channel or through social media with people who are stuck with either things from the book or with the videos they watch or tutorials they find on the GIS Open courseware, the platform where we have free courses. And if I would like to provide help to individuals and you have to go through the whole administration of a big organization like IHE Delft, then it takes a lot of time, and also the rates will be high, and probably when you're at the end of the process, the person is maybe not interested anymore. So wanted to do something in the middle way, which also gives me a lot of freedom to choose the things that I like. Of course, in the Netherlands, I don't know in other places, but we need permissions from our employer to do these things. So I followed, of course, the official route. And funnily, it was in the national news that many people don't follow that route. It was exactly at the moment when I submitted my request for having my own company. So that was a bad timing. All these professors who work for oil companies and do weird things. But I'm very ethical in these things, and I don't think I do anything that is bad for IHE or for anybody. So I said IHE Delft focuses on the global south, low and mid-income countries. I focus mostly on high-income countries. I do more than only water for my company. I don't work with donors. Donors should always go to IHE Delft. We are experienced in working with donors and contracting and all the nitty-gritty of the budget things. So I want to have an easy life with my company and not get into that. There's some regulation in the Netherlands that if you are below 20,000 euros turnover, you don't have to deal with VAT stuff. So I applied for that, which I also used as an argument that it would not interfere with my 40 hours a week that I have to spend at IHE Delft. So all these arguments make it very complementary. And I also think that when I help people with my own company, the materials that I develop for that can also be used in teaching at IHE Delft. So there's clearly a win-win situation. And I already have one client. He's somebody who works with farms and tries to find good soils and uses all the techniques that you can also learn from the book and many more techniques with open source software to find out which ground is good to buy and to start a farm. So a very nice experience collaborating with a client like this.
Fantastic. Alrighty, before we go to a couple of the YouTube comments, I do encourage everybody who's watching at home, please ask your questions for this awesome panel in the YouTube live chat. We will be asking those in just a moment. I wanted to finish off by asking Tyler and Gary, what books can we expect to come from Locate Press this year? Obviously, the Discover book is coming out, which I'm super excited about. But what can we expect to be coming soon?
Yeah, we're working with Qisheng Wu on a book covering his GMAP and Earth Engine topics. So for any of you that are following his tutorials online, you should check those out if you haven't on YouTube. And that's our next book in the queue. We have books covering more on Python and geospatial analytics, and we have more on, oddly enough, Python and maps. Let's just say Python maps, and that's about all I'll say about it for now. But we've got 3 or 4 books in the queue that we're working on, and we'll be hopefully getting those out, once a month or so going forward for the rest of the year. Again, these are kind of smaller format books, just primarily ebooks. And there'll be a lower price point, but they'll also really be highly focused on very specific use cases.
And are the books all recipe style, sort of step-by-step tutorial style, as like the hydrological book? Or are some of them more theory-based? What are they going to look like?
Yeah, most of them are going to be tutorial-based. We are working on one in particular, though, that is looking... I want to move more into the business of GIS as well. So we are working on one title that is more of a backgrounder on kind of personal journeys of how to get into developing consultancy or building your career on top of open source tools versus non-open source tools and the challenges people typically go through. So that one will be a little bit of a different one. We'll test to see if people are interested in that kind of narrative. And so yeah, tutorials, quick starts, get started quickly, do one thing well. Those are all definitely where we're headed.
I'm sure someone like Natalia would actually be interested in that sort of thing.
Yes.
Getting started on open source. What are you currently doing? I know you finished with your studying. What's your current job? And how would a book like that help you?
Regarding how the book will help me, when Tyler was talking, I was like, okay, I need that book, because like we are starting with our tool, and also like the idea is keep working on it, but also like earn something to just make the work paid off, because it's a lot of work and it's still open for everyone. So it will be really cool and really nice. My current job, currently I'm working in a Dutch company called IHE, that also is focused on develop some products for water, irrigation, crop production based on satellite data. So I'm pretty related with remote sensing, and of course we use like softwares like QGIS, and of course OSGeo, or of course GDAL. So all of these things and cool books like Python and how to do the statics and all these things is something that I would like to have.
Absolutely.
That's
Those
good to
are
know.
very exciting publications. I'm very keen.
I think we have a reviewer ready now, so it's good.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant stuff. All right. I'm just having a look at the time, and I think perhaps it's time for a couple of live questions from YouTube. Or what do you think, Hans?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I see a question from Craig Price, and I put it on the screen here. But Craig Price is we are very thankful to him because he wrote the foreword for the second edition, and we chose Craig because Kurt and I have worked with the Australian Water School, and Craig was hosting these sessions, and we developed the courses together with Craig. And he wrote a really nice foreword for us in the second edition. So thank you, Craig.
There's some good tutorial.
Forward.
That group, can you just mention that group again, Hans? Because I know that there are several good videos out as well from Craig's team. Yes, the Australian Water School really produces great learning stuff, especially for people in hydrology, because it's the water school. So it's surface water, groundwater modeling with HEC-RAS, for example. I just had a former colleague of mine from Utrecht University delivering a course for the water school, and was also very happy with the cooperation. So you can check out their website to find also on-demand courses. And I think it's worth it to follow them also on YouTube and subscribe to their newsletters.
I see Craig cheekily said, thanks for the plug, Hans. I'll just read out his question for those of us. So Craig Price asks, in addition to well mapping, are there resources covering hydrological applications, or can we look forward to a future companion volume on groundwater to supplement the surface water applications?
It's a good question from Craig. We developed a course for the Australian Water School, and I also developed a course. That course for Australian Water School was developed by Kurt and me, specifically on groundwater applications. And there are bits and pieces on the GIS Open courseware platform implemented also for IGREC, the UN Institute for Groundwater. And that's all open courseware. But there is no specific book or complete elaborate course yet on groundwater. It would be an idea, and we can always, of course, discuss with Locate Press and have other experts on board if that would be a good niche to also have a book about.
Yeah, definitely.
And stuff. Shall we move on to Pedro's question? Quite interesting.
Yeah, if I can find it. Is it somewhere up?
Yeah, it's just a little bit up underneath from Craig Price's.
Here.
Yeah. So Pedro asks specifically for Locate Press, does Locate Press offer subscriptions to books/content so that one who has already purchased an earlier version can access later editions?
No, we don't specifically have that kind of arrangement, and I can confidently say we're working towards something more like that. In fact, it's been recognized. I'm trying to not share too much before I actually have something to show, but it's been recognized that the online reading experience, as whether it's part of courseware or whether it's more of like a Kindle-like experience or a subscription-based service that gives you access to all of our titles on a monthly rate or something like that, is very high on our agenda. So Gary knows what he's going to be programming next. The the idea that when you're a customer and you stuck with us this long, we really want to make sure you also get the discounts early on to the updates. If it's a minor update or we're fixing errata, and we do that regularly, you always get updates. You just have to go in and regenerate a copy of your PDF. So those ones are not an issue. But we also, it's important that you sign up for our newsletter so that we can share discount codes with you directly, because it's almost all entirely customers on our newsletter. So there's a few ways that you can kind of get the deals right now, and I've put some coupon codes in the chat. And but there are future changes coming that will kind of give us yet another way to engage over the long term with people who want to read more content, and potentially reduce their costs, or at least have some flexibility. That's actually going to be a really interesting platform we're going to work on.
That sounds so exciting. I'm keen to see. Perhaps later on in the year we can do another one of these and catch up with where it's at.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be awesome. I see Hans is winning our Viewers Award for Best Map Frames and Background. So congrats, Hans.
In fact, these are sound-absorbing panels. There's some acoustics here in this room, and it absorbs the sound, but it's also very nice to look at. Probably it's better for the looks than absorbing the sound, but anyway.
I better up my game. All right. So let me see. We have another question from Krakert. Sorry if I'm butchering that. Hans, what argument prompted you to create the PC raster plugin instead of using grass raster hydro modules?
Yes, it's also a bit related to the question earlier from Natalia. So I think the great advantage of open source is that you have alternatives. And many of these alternatives do things in a similar way, but some are more robust than the others, or some have their specific formats. So people choose that mostly based on what they're used to. So it's very hard to get people into another product, I think. But there have been a few arguments, and especially compared to Saga, which was used in the first edition. So Saga and GRASS are processing provider plugins, which have been traditionally installed together with QGIS. And in the future, this is going to change. And these changes are already being made slowly. So in the newer editions, you need to do often a few more steps to get Saga and GRASS in your processing toolbox. And there's a specific problem with Saga. They've upgraded Saga from the LTR version that was always used until 3.16.4 or something. After that version of QGIS, they decided to upgrade for QGIS to Saga 7.x, 7.8, I think. But that broke a few of the essential things that we need for QGIS for Hydrological Applications first edition. The upslope area tool is not working anymore. And basically it's there are two workarounds on my YouTube channel. You can install the old dependencies, QGIS with the old dependencies, or you can edit the so-called descriptor files. That's a bit a piece of human readable text file that you can edit in a text editor, and you just need to change some value from a 0 and a 1 or something. It's that easy. But for simple users, those things are already big steps, and you often bump into problems of having not write permissions where you change that file. So a lot of complications. So I thought, okay, if in the future it is as easy to install any processing provider plugin as if you have access to GRASS and Saga, then we have a level playing field. And PC raster, I grew a bit up with that at Utrecht University in the Netherlands, where I studied and did my PhD. And it has been developed there. The group with one of the, well, talking about books, I think the first person who wrote a book on GIS, Professor Peter Burrow from Oxford University. He worked at Utrecht University. I've worked with him. And that tool is quite old, from somewhere in the 90s, 95, I think, but it's very robust, and it's maintained, and it's open source, and it has Python bindings, so that's very useful. And GRASS is, I think, the oldest in this whole series of tools, and I see all these things as complementary. So on my YouTube channel, you will find the procedures with GRASS, with Saga, with white box tools, and with PC raster. So just see this as a continuum of doing the same workflow with a different set of tools. although I think that the PC raster tools are a bit more intuitive and robust than the others. And as a teacher, as a lecturer, I would say I prefer small building blocks for the learning process than have the whole catchment delineation behind one button, because then you don't know if you change tools what happens. So that's a bit of a philosophy. Building blocks are much better, that you connect the dots, and if you later build it yourself into a graphical model or into a Python script, that's okay, but at least you need to learn these procedures by looking at the building blocks and trying them out. And I think QGIS has a great opportunity for that with all these tools in the processing toolbox.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you for your in-depth answer. That was great. I see that Tyler is actually answering some of the questions as we speak. And we are running a little low on time. So Hans, I think we may have space for one more live question, and then I think I should hand over to you to sort of shape things up.
Sounds good. I'm not sure if I see any question. Do you see any question that is relevant? I'll put it on the screen.
Maybe we could talk about supplying academic material, or for people who are leading classes. Would that be helpful? Leah, because Leah asks here, yeah, exactly there. So we do supply a lot of books to university courses, and you can always buy books through Amazon. You can always buy books through the PDF books through our website. But the best deals that you'll get, especially on bulk print orders, will be directly through us. So you can email me, tyler@locatepress.com. And we'll set up a bulk order for you, and you'll get the best rates that way. It's especially important too to try to line it up so maybe your library can order the books directly from the actual printing company and distributors that we use. Then all of us are kind of out of the loop, and libraries can do their thing, or your campus bookstores. So both this book and Kurt's book are used in a lot of courses. So that's great. Great to hear. I'd love to hear your story. Please email me your needs and tell me more about what you're doing, because that is one of the primary goals of the company, is to support training, and whether it's private consulting trainers or academics, they're both equally valuable to us and of interest to us to support.
Brilliant. Thank you, Leah. Thank you so much. It's great to see the books being used in a practical environment. I think that's amazing. I think that's what all the authors want to see, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, sure.
Fantastic. I think that's a great segue to thanking the authors and publishers and handing over to Hans to finish off the session.
Yes, before we end this session, we have a few shameless plugs. We already introduced a few, but let's look at this. So where can you find us in the near future? If you want to meet some of us, so Kurt and I and Celine, at least, will be joining Phosphor-G in Freelance. And Amy, you too. Mm-hmm. Great. Love to see you live. I'll only see you online. So I will be presenting there or hosting a workshop on the PC raster for hydrology using QGIS and Python. So you can register at the website. Kurt will tell later a bit about his presentation. And next week, if everything goes well, I'll be joining the Living Planet Symposium organized by ESA. I won a project together with a partner from Benin in the ESA R&D facility, EO Africa R&D facility, and we are going to present our plans to develop a lake monitoring system using satellite images and their infrastructure to do the calculation and processing of satellite data. Then there are some upcoming courses at IHE Delft, face-to-face courses. Can, of course, always change if COVID comes back, but let's hope that doesn't happen. The first and most important one is the one that I organized together with Kurt, QGIS for Hydrological Applications. And if you join that course you will receive the book, we'll use the book. And if you successfully complete the course, you will receive the official QGIS certificate. which contributes 20 euros to the development of QGIS. So it's a great thing to have, and also for us as an institute, IHE Delft, to contribute to QGIS. Now, there might be people here who need scholarships. Then you could go for the 2-week courses, and on the website of IHE Delft, you can find different scholarship opportunities. If you're from the Global South, from certain countries, there are different opportunities. So these courses that start with data acquisition, the last 3 courses, they're 2 weeks. And the first week is QGIS for Hydrological Applications with Kurt and me. And the second week, you dive into either HackRAS or SWAT or Python. So that could be also one that's interesting for you. For this year, you can't get the scholarships anymore, but for next year, you can apply for that. Give the floor to Kurt for his shameless plugs.
Thanks, Hans. So just yesterday, I uploaded to the QGIS style repository a series of kind of outdoor life icons, outdoor recreation icons. It's a series of 120 that you can go and download and bring into QGIS now. So next. And I do have a series of courses coming up that I've developed here at Septima. This one is data visualization with QGIS, in which I go through print layout tricks, layer effects, blending modes, cartographic effects for coastlines, expression-based symbology, including geometry generators, using the temporal controller to create temporal animations, using the 3D viewer with some of the new enhancements to it, and then finishing up with weather-related mesh data, which also incorporates the temporal controller. And all these courses I'm going through, you can go to the next slide, Hans. They all also come with a QGIS certificate. So the other course I've developed is raster data and analysis with QGIS. All of these are online courses, so they can be taken from anywhere. In this one, you're identifying potential vineyards using terrain, land cover, and soils data. And through the course, you go through a whole set of useful steps that could be used for really any raster analysis, such as how to use the raster calculator in different ways. Next. The one I just finished developing is one on data collection using QGIS and Mergin maps. So this is a shorter course. It's just a 2-hour session with an hour follow-up, and I give you an assignment. And this is a fantastic suite of tools. If you have not used Mergin maps, I'm a big fan, and I encourage you to explore it. And I've already talked about the next second edition of Discover QGIS 3H, but these slides go through some of the specifics. I didn't mention that the book, every chapter includes solution files, so you can go and open up the final QGIS project to see the result. You can answer discussion questions, and then there's challenge assignments, which give you an opportunity to go through the same workflow on a different set of data, so that it kind of makes sure that you can actually accomplish that workflow without following the step-by-step instructions. And the book has 31 chapters. All the exercises have been updated, and they'll be current to QGIS 326. There's new graphics. There's 7 new chapters, including the raster data analysis chapter, field data collection, using the style manager and working with legend patch shapes, automating print layouts with templates and atlases, working with labels and annotation, so the new annotation tools, animating data with the temporal controller, and working with point cloud data. And even in some of the older chapters, there's new tasks such as computing network isochrones, geocoding using the new Nominatum geocoding service that's built into QGIS, using layer notes, which is kind of one of these new features that's overlooked, I think, and then creating elevation profiles, which is something that's just out in the nightly releases now. That's a really exciting new feature. And this is the talk that I'll be giving at Phosphor-G in Italy. I'll be talking about QGIS feature frenzy, what's new in the last year. So I'm going to kind of giving the latest and greatest of QGIS features in Firenze.
Definitely worth watching that. And I think that was the last slide, but I think there's another shameless plug, and that one is from Amy, I think, on the QGIS Open Day. Do you want to say something, Amy? This is your chance to do a shameless plug on that one.
Oh, no, absolutely. I would love to do a plug on the QGIS Open Day. So for everyone who's watching, monthly on the last Friday of every month, we have the QGIS Open Day. It's a completely open platform where we basically meet up in an open room with someone who has a question, someone who has a new plugin, someone who has an awesome workflow that they use QGIS to do. The next one is on the 27th of May. Which is next week. So please join in. We have some amazing talks. We have our friends from Lutra coming to show us some data analysis with point clouds. And we also have a really interesting PhD candidate from the UK who is using satellite imagery to assess sea health and also look at mass whale strandings. And she actually put out to the community that she needs help to do this. She really wants to use QGIS in order to do this, and she needs to know more about how to analyze generally raster data, but also her satellite imagery. So she'd love whoever's a user/expert in imagery to be in that call and give her some advice. So yeah. Please join in on any QGIS Open Day that you would like to. And if you'd like to give a session at any point, please pop over to the QGIS wiki page. It's on the QGIS Twitter. It's on Facebook. It's on every social media you can think of. Join in. I encourage you to do so.
Great. Yes, always fun, these QGIS Open Days, and learning a lot and exchanging with others. Anyone else wants to plug something or some final words before we close off?
We would definitely want to do more webinars, so you're inspiring me to check these out better. We have, for example, a lot of educators that are authors at Locate Press. So time hasn't permitted it yet, but we're going to have an education breakout panel group with 5 to 8 academics on our panel talking about how to integrate open source GIS into your coursework. So, a lot of academics don't necessarily know the next steps or the resources that are available. At least Kurt and Hans have learned through the fire and figured it out. So we'll sign up for the newsletter and we'll let you know when that happens.
Sounds great.
And I'd like to take this opportunity with Gary and Tyler here to thank you both for all the support and all the books I've published with Locate Press. And I can recommend Locate Press to other authors. I've had a great experience with Locate Press. I'm a big fan. And so if you're interested in writing a book on a cool topic using open source GIS, contact Tyler.
Yeah, Steve, thanks, Kurt.
As an author, I can only endorse what Kurt is saying, and really nice to work with all of you. Fantastic that you could join this live session too and get the word out of what we are doing. I think that's great.
Same here. Thanks a lot.
And thanks Gary. Thanks Tyler. Thanks Natalia and Celine. I hope you still enjoy a lot the book fund stuff that we're doing. Thanks Kurt for writing with you, and thanks Amy for doing this session with us. It was really great to have such a good interviewer that can ask us all these nice questions. And thanks to the audience that was watching, and also thanks for your questions. And I really hope you enjoy our work and our books, and hope to see you also back in the future. So I'm going to close off. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.